All right, man. Peace. So, brothers, this is going to be volume 3 in the series, Can a Man Love His Mother Too Much? And it will be featuring the Boston Celtics rookie Carsen Edwards. As we're going to see in this segment, he decided that he was going to tattoo himself with the message of help mama out, which supposedly is a reminder to him of what he wants to do for his family. I'm not quite sure why he would need that reminder. I've never been someone who understood the importance of having to look at a tattoo as some type of remembrancer for you to understand what your priorities should be. But I do believe that the reason why he has the tattoo or the message on him is because that's meant to signify that his mother is his quote-unquote God. And that delves into the sentiment that I touch on intermittently on this channel of the so-called black man living in a quote-unquote black matriarchy. And as we can see all around this society, they're trying to promote the importance of the mother goddess archetype, as I've told you, brothers, particularly since the so-called Me Too movement has started. They're going to shift everything over from the divine masculine to the divine feminine. And they're trying to get the masses to accept that not only is the woman equal to you, but that she's superior to you, especially intellectually. They need you to believe that. I'm talking about on the lower levels of society. They need you to believe that the woman is smarter than you so that you can follow her vibe and lead with your emotions. On the left-hand side, they like to have the dichotomy of the masculine principle and the feminine principle. The masculine principle is personified by the planet Saturn. So when you're Saturnine, you're morose, you're depressed, you're serious. The feminine principle normally is typified by the planet Venus or by the moon or by Earth, Mother Earth. She's impassioned. She leads with her emotions. Those two things come together and they balance one another out. Once they remove the importance of the masculine principle or the divine masculine, now you're just left with the divine feminine and the impact that those vibrations, that energy has on everyone, the man, the woman, and the child. The divine feminine energy will turn men into homosexuals. It will turn women either into lesbians or toxic feminists. And it will turn the child into a quote-unquote divine hermaphrodite, or the personification of the divine child, the entity known in history as Hermaphroditus, the son of Hermes and Aphrodite. Just getting back to the point, the reason why the quote-unquote black matriarchy is so powerful in the so-called black community is because we've been the most disempowered of any race of men on the planet Earth, especially in the Western civilization, due to the crack epidemic and the concerted attempts to constantly disempower so-called black people by pushing disinformation and misinformation on them pertaining to our history. You understand? So that's why of all races of people, we've been the most impacted by the matriarchal establishment, by the implementation of having to follow behind the energy of the woman. And we see it in the way that so many so-called black males lead with their emotions, and they lack the ability to evaluate things using logic, reason, and rationale. So anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Hey guys, so Boston Celtics rookie Carsen Edwards uses his mother as his motivation on the court, writing "Help Mama Out" on his wrist before every game. And I personally know a lot of athletes who kind of go this route.
And pardon me, it's not a tattoo, as the brother Darnell just stated. It's a writing on his wristband that he inscribes before every game. But once again, the sentiment is the same, because you see this especially all over the so-called black community. Grown men tattooing their mother's names on them, their grandmother's names on them, their date of birth and date of death, as if they're commemorating something that they don't already have within their heart. Whatever it is that touches you in your life, it should always be imbued in your brain and in your spirit. You shouldn't have to tattoo it, because when you're tattooing something, it's for other people to see. It's not really for you to see. So in my view, I've always found that to be disingenuous. But let's just get back to what the brother's talking about here.
Motivate themselves. But do you guys like this motivational approach?
This is actually a heavier question. Again, I think having success and sharing it with your family is one of the greatest things you can do. And it's nice for athletes, young athletes, that the guy signed a $4.5 million contract, 4 years or whatever. But most young people, I don't think, should try to shoulder the burden of trying to save their family. You know, a child needs to be allowed to be a child.
Let me say this very quickly, Whitlock. I'm sure, as you already know, throughout the so-called black community, because the natural relationship paradigm or the relationship pattern is for the woman to become impregnated by the man and then run the man off, that essentially puts undue pressure on the son that is born of that quote-unquote relationship. Number one, to replace the father as a husband and also as a leader in the home. Why is that done? It's done because, once again, the so-called modern day liberal black female knows that the state will support her in a way that, for the most part, many so-called black males that they choose to procreate with cannot or will not. So that allows for two things. That allows for the modern day liberal black female, who's the personification of the mother goddess in the home, the earth goddess / moon goddess / goddess of Venus. It allows her to believe that she can be the ultimate authoritarian in the home. And it also allows her to establish a pseudo sexual relationship with her son, a psychological sexual relationship with her son, where she cannot be cheated on. He becomes her proverbial husband, as you're going to touch on later in this segment. And as I've touched on numerous times in many of these videos, he can become a pseudo husband for her who can never leave her and cannot quote unquote cheat on her. She never has to worry about her being left by her son. So between the state, her son, and her son assuming these roles that tend to be deleterious to his spirit of being a pseudo husband and pseudo father in the home and quote unquote provider, and also the toxic relationship that she has with the actual father, she has control over all three things. So it's really all about making sure that the woman is the hub of the quote unquote household. And that's why we see that things tend to not work out down the line. But it's really all about the woman and her essential, her intrinsic need to aggrandize herself or to worship herself.
Hopefully, as they mature in their adulthood and have some success, they do remember the older people that helped them get there. But placing that burden, I think it's an issue for young black people. A lot of times we place that burden on them to be the man of the house and the man of the family.
Not quite the man of the house, to be the boy god of the house, to be the proverbial Harpocrates or Heru of the house. Once again, the modern day woman is not raised to be able to share a home with a man. Having an authoritative man in the home is going to become an offense to most women, not all, but to most women after a while. Just the energy of that man is going to become offensive to them. A man presiding over the home. That's why you'll even hear many of these females say, I'll allow him to lead. What does that really even mean? For someone to say that they'll allow you to lead, what that really means is, I know that I have the ultimate power if I want to exercise it. But for the sake of maintaining the peace, at least for now, until I get bored or I become interested in someone else, I will allow him to believe that he calls the shots. So there are a lot of dynamics that go into the issues in these households. But just getting back to the point, it's not so much that the son becomes the man of the house. The son becomes the stand-in for the energy that she was offended by, that being an actual grown man.
They're ready. My greatest satisfaction was being put in a position where I can help my family in terms of locale, in terms of changing our trajectory and generational wealth. But it's become one of my greatest burdens as well. When you talk about the family dynamic changing and how it can emasculate males in your family that are power figures, authoritative figures.
Great observation, sir. And you have to have a great amount of security within yourself when you get older. If your parents or an older patriarchal figure, say an uncle or a grandfather, needs your assistance, or your father needs your assistance monetarily, are you going to be able to generate the scope, the perspective, and the humility to assist them in a time of need for them without holding it over their heads and making plain what is already understood? That being that they had to humble themselves and check their own manhood at the door just for the sake of asking for help. Because for a man to ask for help, he does understand that he's going to have to check his own manhood at the door, at least for that moment, until he can reimburse you in some way, especially if he's asking for something from you that he has not worked for. And you know, if you're dealing with a man who has pride and who has worked hard his whole life, as opposed to some bum ass dude. So that's really a litmus test for you. Are you going to assist that person with a sense of humility, or are you going to try to hold that over that person's head and try to have a ha-ha moment, which is a problem amongst many people, especially in the so-called black community. When you see someone that you know has always provided for themselves and maintained their own life, and now they're in a moment where they're susceptible maybe to mental fragility because they actually need to reach out and ask for a helping hand. Are you going to be magnanimous and benevolent, or are you going to try to harp on how much they need your help? That's a test for you as much as it is for them.
Your own father, when everything flips, because you know at the end of every equation, you have the money, so you have the power. And it was very difficult. This motivation I love because it was part of my motivation as well. That last rep, that last hurdle, that last chance on that field was for the family. But you got to understand that you got to look at the family forward, not so much backwards. You can't save everybody and everything. Help them, but then make sure you do things going forward.
Yeah, I don't like it so much. I think every guy has his own motivation and what they're doing it for, whether it's, I see guys writing on their tape, religion and, different things. He's already made it. You get what I'm saying? He already can help his mom out. He already can take care of her. So going forward, your motivation or whatever it needs to be on the court. It needs to be, going, like you say, going forward.
I agree with you, brother, but once again, we have to understand that there's a psychological and a spiritual connection that many of these so-called young black males have with their mothers, and it's purposeful. It's a trickle down from an overall pattern or paradigm that is established by this society and is being pushed more and more overtly to worship the feminine principle. And a lot of these young boys, they don't understand it until they get to be 35, 36 years old. That's why I make these videos. You understand that, brothers? When you have knowledge, you have to share it. When you have understanding, you have to share it. What is the point of just sitting on understanding when you can assist others? I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about all of you cats out there who understand things. You have to inform people so that they don't make mistakes that are going to hurt us as a collective. Simps hurt us as a collective because what they do is they worship the quote-unquote divine feminine. They impregnate females who have a mother goddess complex, and then they bring children into the world that they're not even going to be able to preside over. So what that ensures is another generation of simps and young girls who are going to grow up with entitlement issues. And that's the real reason why we don't have the quote unquote unity between black men and black women. Every once in a while, I'll get one of these angry liberal black chicks who come on my channel trying to go back and forth, and they'll catch themselves trying to chastise me and state, why am I saying this about black women when I should be trying to promote quote unquote unity between black men and black women? And I'll be speaking on this more in depth in another video. You cannot promote something that does not exist. You cannot promote unity between black people and other races when it does not exist. You cannot promote unity between the so-called black man and so-called black woman when that does not exist. As a concept, it doesn't exist. It only exists as a hypothetical, because there's no such thing as black. So there can never be unity between black men and black women. We have to understand culturally what binds us, not what binds us according to skin pigmentation. And in order to understand what binds us culturally, we're going to have to restore our roles. Like the scriptures tell us in Jeremiah 6:16, seek ye the old paths. You understand? That's what works. What the modern day super liberal black female wants is for her to embrace all of the most progressive ideologies, while you as a so-called black man are supposed to subscribe to her new definition of what a traditional man is supposed to be. You understand? They want you to worship them. They use code word. They say respect them, but what they really mean is worship them. So they're going to have to be completely recalibrated. But again, that's a whole other video for another day. We have to understand what our hierarchy is. That means the Most High, His Son, and us. And when we move according to that order, we cannot fail. You understand that? It's like Nas said in the classic song Ether, I will not lose. You cannot lose when you follow that pattern. You can only lose when you follow after the woman as your God. You understand? Because people in the flesh will change. They will fail you almost unerringly. But what people will do when they see that you are following after a spiritual hierarchy is that they will be inspired to follow you as they should. Your woman should want to follow you. You're not supposed to be following her. That's madness. At the end of the day, the woman has an essential beauty and quality that cannot be replaced, but she's not a leader. And I don't give a damn who don't like that.
You have the means to take care of your mom. You have the means to take care of your family. That's done and over with. What are you going to do going forward? And that's why I understand when guys have religion, beliefs, and they have, when need this constant reminder during the games or before the games, whatever it is. I just think he's already made it to the point there's no looking back.
I think all of us here understand what I'm about to say. It's an enormous amount of burden put on the black males in the community when they make it, that they always have to kind of give back.
Yes, well, that's part of, and it's no disrespect, that's part of the welfare mentality in the so-called black community, and I see it a lot in the comment section on my channel, particularly from the pro-blackity black faction that rears its ugly heads in my comment section every once in a while. What do I mean by that? When I say pro-blackity black, I'm talking about the people who are caricatures of what it means to be an entity or a force for real change that's going to result in positives and real solutions. Pro-blackities are not interested in solutions. All they're interested in is quote-unquote activism, meaning complaining about things when they have no end game. And one of the main things that they do is harass the quote-unquote rich blacks. Floyd Mayweather, Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, they're supposed to give us money. You have the right to call those people out on a spiritual level for their Luciferianism. But on a monetary scale, no, you have no right to call them out for not even 1 penny. Not even 1 penny. Now, they'll be held accountable for what they've done or not done for their people by the Most High. But you as another human being, if you're truly grinding and working hard every day to improve yourself, you're not even thinking about the next man's money because you're too busy focused on what your goals are. Now, what someone of a Michael Jordan or Floyd Mayweather caliber will do is they will invest in people who they see are already working hard, but they're not going to throw their change away to some nigga who's just smoking blunts and playing video games all day, nor should they. And I've heard from many credible sources that Michael Jordan, Floyd Mayweather behind the scenes, they bankroll and invest in many quote-unquote black businesses and many young black athletes and entrepreneurs behind the scenes that you have no idea about, while you're on the internet clickety-clacking about what everybody should be doing for you. For you. And here's my issue with what Jim Jackson is saying. There's no disrespect to the brother, but he's saying that there's added pressure on so-called black men who do well. Well, you said the other day when Jason Whitlock stated that athletes should not be idols, you said that you took personal offense to that. So you have to understand that if you want to be considered an idol, that means that you're an object of attention. That therefore means that people are going to want things from you.
Maybe more so than other communities. And I think that burden when you're younger, like Carsen Edwards sees this from maybe role models of people down the line, that's something I got to do too. I got to give back, which is great. But I think the burden a lot of time weighs heavy on a lot of guys that can go the opposite way because of that feeling, that pressure. Think about it. We've all been put in a situation because we've been successful with money. People think that I'm smarter than what I am. And I can solve all the problems just because I got paid or I've been successful over here.
Well, let me say this. First off, brother, I've seen you many times participate in these conversations on the Jason Whitlock show. You're clearly very intelligent. But once again, once you decide that you want to be on the platform of hero worship, i.e. idolatry, because you stated that you took personal offense when Whitlock told you that athletes should not be quote unquote role models. All the term role model is a watered down term for idol. So, of course, people are going to put superhuman qualities or characteristics on you that you might not even have. You have to be very, very careful. That fame is a double-edged sword. You're going to get a lot of attention, both positive and negative.
That's not the case, and that's a heavy burden to carry. But from a motivation perspective, I get it. But I think you need to kind of curtail that burden a little bit more so it doesn't weigh you down. With if you're not successful, it seems as though you fail.
You know, it's not actually restricted to just our culture, black people. They call it the black tax because we're first generation success and wealth. But Cameron Jordan, who was just up here as a guest, is a great example of what I aspire to be and to have for my family. He's second generation money. His dad played. Think about that. Think about the burdens he didn't have to, in terms of that dynamic, because he already went through a different situation.
And that's the point. And I've stated that in previous videos as well. You know, oftentimes, and especially a lot of cats in the knowledge Many brothers are in the knowledge because they're promised a finish line. And you have to analyze, are you trying to be a servant of the Most High because you've been given a finish line? You've been told that in your lifetime, this kingdom is going to fall, or you're going to be a king or a ruler and all these other things? Or are you in the knowledge for the right reason? That being a servant of the Most High and his Son and doing what you can to make sure that you make your life better by your actions, and then having that trickle down to your progeny, to your children if you have them, and the people around you, as opposed to trying to be some superhero who's just looking for attention on the internet or out there in public. A lot of cats have to evaluate themselves and ask themselves, what is my life really about? Because generation by generation, the goal should be that we have a better life than our previous generation had. And I've stated this in previous videos. My great-grandfather, he was a sharecropper. My grandfather, he was a farmer and a soldier. My father, he was a soldier and also in the business world. Now me, myself, I'm separated from corporate America. I don't want to have to deal with any of that nonsense. So that's how it's supposed to be. Generation by generation, we have to climb higher and higher and higher and higher. And not just look at things selfishly like, oh, I'm going to get all the glory. Glory does not even really mean anything other than you want to be venerated by people around you. And that's vain, because that shit is going to fade. And for the most part, the same people who worship you are going to turn against you down the line.
We had to go back. We got our money and had to go directly backwards and go about face to change situations instead of using that in prosperity going forward.
I'm going to say this because it's just not discussed enough. But one of the great things I like about you, Marcellus, and why I wanted to work with you is because of your family, your nuclear family. And a lot of us in our community, single parenthood, single parent families, and I've seen a lot of mothers turn their sons into husbands.
Absolutely, sir. And thank you for saying that. And we need more so-called black men who are not afraid to tackle that issue. See, a lot of these cats, they like to perpetuate these red herrings about black and white. And we have so many issues within our own community that even if you wanted to maintain this rivalry with the Caucasian or with the other races, we're not strong enough as a people to go to war with any other nation right now. We're not strong enough because we don't have the ability to strategize due to the fact that most of the males of our nation think and act like women. So in order for us to be strong enough to win or compete, we have to attack the weaknesses within ourselves first. That's the bottom line. You could be a great fighter and you have a championship bout in 2.5 months. If you don't train and get rid of the weaknesses within you, you're going to lose. That's the bottom line. And one of the main weaknesses that the so-called black man has is his over infatuation with his mother and other forms of dominant female figures in the so-called black community. We're the only so-called race that's as dominated by women as we are, and that's why we're at the bottom. And the so-called black woman, the liberal black woman, overtly, she wants what's best for her people, but subconsciously, she has a series of programs that initialize themselves, and she needs to be reprogrammed or shut down. That's the bottom line. And whether people want to admit it or not, they prefer to be single mothers. I don't care what they say overtly. They prefer to be single mothers. Why is that? Because they therefore become a microcosm of the mother goddess and her child. As I tell you, brothers, all the time, whenever you look up any type of depiction of the mother goddess, she's always holding her child by herself. You understand that? Everything has a spirit.
And it's inappropriate. This is a young man, 21, 22 years old. There's a role he should play in this society. Yeah. Husband to his mother is not one of them. And he should...
Pseudo-husband. And some of you brothers will find, especially if you're not vigilant, I did a video about this. I think it was the Mama's Boy Problem, Volume 1. Where this dude was in court. It's one of these Judge Mathis shows. The dude was in court, and the chick that he went out on a date with took him to court. He owed her some money. But this dude was so under his mother. And his mother was talking about his pubic hair and all these other things. Why is that? Because the mother is trying to find a replacement for the male figure in the house. People do not understand that we're genetically encoded to live out certain roles. The woman is genetically encoded to be a wife and a mother. You understand? But the rapport between herself and the masculine principle has been rendered extremely toxic by the propaganda on television and many of these Luciferian movements that they call, quote unquote, civil rights movements. So that has to be repaired. And on top of that, the rapport between her and her children has become overly severe. What I mean by that is the motherly instinct that should be kept within a certain role or within certain boundaries has been allowed to overflow to where she is just doing too much, as they say, as I covered in volume 2 of this series with Kevin Durant and his mother. And there is an Oedipal complex aspect to this, which is quasi-sexual in nature. I mean, it really is, and we have to pay issuance to this.
Help his mother out, help his family out, but within certain boundaries. I don't know if feeling that overwhelming responsibility is appropriate. All right, coming up.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. This was a very good conversation. Hopefully a lot of you brothers will understand the importance of the masculine principle and making sure that you have enough wisdom and knowledge to preside over situations and not allow them to spill out of control, especially when you see certain things coming. About 12 or 13 years ago, they started a platform here in New York City called When You See Something, Say Something, in reference to a lot of the quote-unquote terrorism that was going on across the country, centered in New York City. Well, it's the same thing in real life. When you understand something, say something. So peace.